is our strategic plan status update, goal number 1. So, Dr. Williams, will turn to you there.
I want to start by showing you all a document that you're familiar with. This is the Key Work of School Board's Guidebook, and as you all know, in the 2009 edition of this, you all are featured as an example of an effectively functioning school board. And what I want to refer to is 3 of the 8 elements that this guidebook identifies as effectively functioning school board, because it relates to this next presentation on the strategic plan update. And the 3 action areas that I want to make a connection with the presentation are relate to vision, standards of improvement, and continuous and also continuous improvement. Now, in terms of vision, obviously the strategic plan includes the vision that the school board has set forth and is also collectively held more broadly within the school division. But in addition to the strategic plan reflecting your vision, it also includes standards for assessing progress, assessing improvement. And so I just want to commend you in your adoption of the strategic plan for including those standards for improvement, but then also just wanting to focus the division on continuous improvement. And I want to read just one very brief excerpt relating to continuous improvement from this guidebook from the National School Boards Association. In discussing continuous improvement, it says, it's a way of thinking and acting that is never satisfied with the status quo, and it is an objective that is never accomplished. And so really, this is the first in a series of web-based strategic plan updates that we will provide this year for you. And really it's a matter of taking a look at, okay, you all set forth benchmarks, and those benchmarks are higher each year. And this is an opportunity for us to share with you how we're doing in meeting those benchmarks. So really I just wanted to, in these introductory comments, talk about the big picture, the articulation of the vision, the standards of improvement, and then the continuous improvement process that you focused us on, and how that relates to the update that you will receive this evening, specifically as it relates to a number of the objectives under the first goal. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Guy.
Thank you. Back up again.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. This evening, Dr. Lisa Pennycuff, Director of Accountability and Instructional Services, will join me in sharing our performance as it relates to Goal 1 in the strategic plan. All of the data we are sharing with you this evening is published on the division website. You'll note as we go through the presentation that we may skip over a few of the objectives under Goal 1. This is because the data is not yet available or may currently be embargoed by the state. Once the data is available for public release, we will post it on this page. Also, if you're interested in a more detailed review of the data than what is provided this evening, there are many tables embedded in this web page under the objectives in Goal 1. So let's begin with the first objective. Our first objective, the division in each school will meet or exceed annual NCLB targets and goals. As we take a look at this, we look here and we see that York County School Division met 25 of 29 AYP benchmarks. Now remember that to make AYP, a school or division must meet 29 benchmarks. In a few minutes, I'll share more information on the benchmarks we missed. As we scroll down, let me pull this down a little bit. I want to go down here to the high schools. All of our high schools made AYP. So if we take a look at this table, as you look at the subgroups, please note that there are 27 instances where the pass rate is in the 90s and 13 instances where the pass rate is 100%. 8 out of 10 of our elementary schools made AYP for 2010. I want to draw your attention to Grafton Bethel Elementary School. They were recently recognized as a Blue Ribbon School, one of only 254 public schools across the nation to receive this prestigious award. This achievement is earned by those schools whose students, regardless of background, perform at the highest level. And then as we look at our middle schools, although none of our middle schools made AYP for 2010, all 4 middle schools showed considerable growth from the previous year. The math rate for all students at Queens Lake increased by 7 percentage points from the previous year. So if we look at our students from Queens Lake, all students, their pass rate increased from 79% last year to 86% this year. If we look at Grafton Middle and Tabb Middle, they met the AMO in math for students with disabilities by raising their pass rate by 12 and 14 percentage points, respectively. Yorktown Middle met the AMO in math by demonstrating significant gains for Black, economically disadvantaged, and students with disability subgroups, and the gains for these groups range from 13 to 26 percentage points from the previous year. Now, while we're taking a look at this, I want to talk for just a second about our math success. The middle school block schedule was fully implemented in grades 6 through 8 in this past school year. As a result, all of our students received a daily 90-minute block of instruction in all non-high school credit math classes. In addition to that additional time, significant instructional support was provided at the middle school level in math this past year. The instructional specialists for mathematics held biweekly content team meetings throughout the fall and periodic sessions in the spring with math teachers at several middle schools. The focus of these meetings was on collaborative planning, and group members shared strategies that would engage students while meeting the level of rigor needed for SOL mastery. Now let's go back up to this 13 of 19. 13 of 19 schools met the NCLB AYP requirement in 2010. As I mentioned, the 4 middle schools missed it, and Magruder and Yorktown Elementary. As we take a look at our unmet AYP benchmarks, you can see we have work to do in the area of English performance. To address this matter, we've already begun to examine our reading model to identify specific literacy needs. We're looking at how we're utilizing our reading specialists at the middle school, and we will identify best practices so that we can maximize the academic benefit for our struggling readers. We also plan to implement additional reading interventions at the middle school level that allow teachers to target specific reading difficulties. And we will continue to provide professional development resources and ongoing training tied to specific reading strategies. At this time, Dr. Pennycuff will share information regarding our preliminary accreditation status.
May I ask a question before
Yes,
we
ma'am.
move into that?
Would you
When
like-
you talked about what you plan to do, how do you plan to evaluate, to look at your outcomes, to know that what we're doing is working?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to do is we have to identify where our concerns are, where we don't have fidelity to the programs that we currently have in place. Or as we look at how we're utilizing folks in different places, what are those best practices? We plan to also possibly visit some other schools outside of our division to see what they're doing. Once we have those pieces in place, then we will evaluate those specific activity strategies that we put into place. Oftentimes we look at the people that are the frontline people, our reading specialists in the programs. So.
Because to do this, if this was the end of last school year, so we would have to have things in place relatively soon as we begin the school year so that we can get some things accomplished, so that we would, again, look at measuring outcomes towards the end of the school year. That's my thinking. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, part of what we do, though, is we can't come in right away and say, oh, we need to change this. We need to put this in place, because we've got to assess what strategies we had in place already. And the schools, through their school improvement plan, have specific initiatives in place as well. And so they do the same type of analysis at the school level to determine what programs they had in place worked, what didn't work, to look at the individual students in terms of their performance so that we can identify specifically where those gaps, where the issues or concerns are, so that we can identify appropriate strategies. All right, Dr. Pennicup?
Thank you. Each year, schools must meet both state and federal accountability benchmarks. Dr. Guy has just shared the AYP benchmarks required for the federal reporting. Our schools and divisions must also meet the state requirements for accreditation. State accreditation is based on the overall performance of all of the students in the school. The York County School Division and all 19 of our schools are fully accredited. We have been able to maintain that status since 2002-2003. York County students are consistently able to exceed the accreditation benchmarks, and we'd like to call your attention to a few areas here. If you take a look at the English for grades 3, 4, and 5, we would like for you to note that all of the schools have performance that ranges from 86 to 97, with 8 of our schools exceeding 90% in the area of English. For the elementary schools in the area of math, all 10 of our elementary schools were able to achieve performance that ranged from 96 to 99. For our middle schools, we'd like to point out that in the area of English, the overall picture of how our students are performing in those schools, you will notice that we have schools who've been able to exceed last year's benchmarks, last year's scores that they achieved in 3 of our middle schools while maintaining in our 4th middle school. In the area of math, I'd like to call your attention to Yorktown that was able to improve their pass rates by 10 percentage points in 1 year. And also, as Dr. Guy mentioned earlier, the improvements at Queens Lake in the area of math, an additional 6 points there. For the area of history, please notice that the schools have all been able to increase their pass rates, with some of these scores increasing by as much as 8 and 9 points. In the area of science, each one of our middle schools was able to increase their achievement, with the pass rates ranging from 92 to 97%. For our high schools, we'd like to show you that our pass rates for English range from 94 to 98. All 4 high schools also had pass rates of 93% or above in writing, with a pass rate of 100% for York River Academy. 3 years ago, the state of Virginia established a recognition system to honor the schools in Virginia that were able to meet or exceed the accountability benchmarks for the state and federal reporting categories. The York County School Division had 12 schools who were able to be honored in the Virginia Index of Performance Incentive Program. We had 1 school who earned Governor's Award for Educational Excellence, 7 schools who earned the Board of Education Excellence Award, and 4 schools who earned the Board of Education Competence to Excellence Award. The next objective that we will look at is reducing the difference in the pass rate of middle school African American and Caucasian students, with our goal being that it would not exceed 10 percentage points for math and reading. We're very proud to share this with you tonight. In 2008, in the area of reading, we started with a gap of 17%, and this year we are able to celebrate that we have that gap down to 9%. In the area of math, we started with a 22% gap, and this year we've been able to reduce that gap down to 8%. That trend continues as we show you the point difference between the total mean SAT scores of African American and Caucasian students. Our goal was also to reduce by 10 points annually. Please note that this year, the point difference between the students who are black and the students who are white who took the SAT is reduced by 28 points to 195 points. That's below the national average. Okay, please notice that while the number of African American students increased who took the test, so did their pass rates. Dr. Guy?
All right, our next objective is the number of scores of 3 or higher on advanced placement will increase by 5% annually. As we take a look at this, I'll share with you that the number of scores of 3 or higher on the advanced placement exams increased by 3 percentage points this past year. However, over the past 2 years, the number of scores of 3 or higher has increased by 14%. Bruton, Grafton, Tabb, and York High School were each recognized this year as one of America's best high schools by Newsweek magazine. Newsweek's selection process is based on the degree to which schools challenge students with advanced placement and IB coursework. Only 6% of all public schools in the United States made this list. I also want to share that we added a new AP course offering this year at all 4 high schools. We're offering AP Human Geography, and that's predominantly to 9th grade students, and we have 112 students enrolled in AP Human Geography this school year. Our next objective is by 2014, the percentage of high school graduates earning an advanced studies diploma out of the total number of diplomas awarded will increase by 5 percentage points above the number awarded in 2008. As we take a look at this, I'm pleased to share that the 2010 performance exceeded the milestone set, which was 56%, as 62% of York County School Division graduates earned an advanced studies diploma. That's an increase of 3 percentage points from just the previous year. Wait a minute. There they are. By 2014, the percentage of students who entered the 9th grade in 2010-2011 school year and graduate on time will increase 5% over the percentage of students who graduated on time in 2008. Preliminary data indicates that the 2010 benchmark was exceeded. This information is based on our data. The data from the state is embargoed at this time. So we'll add that data as it becomes available. And lastly, all NCLB subgroups will meet or exceed the 85% on-time graduation rate by 2012. Again, pleased to share that our preliminary data indicates that all the 2010 benchmarks were exceeded. We'll slide back up here. As we conclude our review of the objectives under Goal 1 in the strategic plan, it's evident that our schools have done an excellent job meeting almost all of the targets set before them. It's important to keep in mind that as a division, though, we have stated that we believe, and if you'll take a look at our first 2 belief statements, we believe that student achievement is the core priority of the school division. However, our second belief statement reminds us that student achievement is more than performance on standardized tests. Our mission is to engage all students in rigorous educational experiences. And rigor means helping students develop the capacity to understand content that is complex, ambiguous, provocative, and personally or emotionally challenging. Over the past year and a half, we spent a great deal of time defining and creating exemplars for rigorous and engaging work, and now much of our professional development is focused on the collaborative examination of student and teacher work. By focusing on student work, we get a better sense of the kind and quality of the work going on inside our schools and classrooms. Is the work relevant, rigorous, and engaging? What are students required to do? Are expectations clear and appropriate? By working collaboratively, teachers get the benefit of their peers' perspective and the collective wisdom of the group as it relates to rigorous and engaging work. And as a division, we're better able to achieve our mission. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Um,